Network. Welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. Today, folks, we're going to get into some great conversations. The first one is that there's finally proof. The Washington Post has put out some new data to show that, yep, what we all came to believe is actually true, that black people are fatally shot more than white people by the police. We'll have that conversation. Also, Netflix, TikTok, and other big tech companies are stopping their communications in Russia. We'll be checking in with the chair of the communication study from American University, Professor Iron Sinwright, to talk about the implications. And then later, let's talk about, would you rather have a 5-day work week or a 3-day work week? The New York governor says she wants a 3-day work week for New Yorkers. Will it work? We'll have that conversation and a whole lot more. We got trends posts, and doing the most. You can't believe it, folks. We got a lot to get to. So stay with us. It's the culture right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. Folks, welcome to the show. Welcome. We got a lot to get to today. Our first conversation deals with something that we all have been talking about over these past 2 years, which is the fact that, yep, folks, there is finally proof that black people, particularly black men, are fatally shot more than white men by the police. And there has been a new set of data that has been released by the Washington Post. Yeah, a newspaper. Not the United States government, not the Justice Department, not the Department of Homeland Security or any other big institution, but yes, a newspaper. A newspaper that has been keeping track of all of these police shootings since 2017. So for 5 years, for 4.5 years, going on 5 years, the Washington Post has been keeping a tally on all of these killings. One of the big things that they say that the Post data relies mostly on the news accounts. They say primarily on news accounts, social media postings, and police reports. This is how they are compiling their data. News accounts, social media posting, and police reports. And over the analysis of more than its 5 years of data reveals that the number and circumstances of fatal shootings and the overall demographics of the victim have remained relatively constant, meaning that it's black men that are getting shot and killed more so than any other people. Now, I think I might have shared this with you folks, that they had put out a number initially, and this was updated. You can go to WashingtonPost.com and you can see this, all of the data yourself. And it's broken down based upon the data, what part of the country you see all of these killings, everything, right? But as of right now, they're saying that 1,017 people have been shot and killed by police in the past year. So in the year 2021, we saw a little bit over 1,000 people that were shot and killed by police in this past year. Now, here's what is happening. Here's why I say there's finally proof that this data also shows that out of 197 million white people live in America, more than 3,000 people of the demographics has been killed by police. Keena, if we can, we could post this to put this data up there because I want folks to really see this. Take a look at this, folks. 197 million white people. And the Post shows that out of 15 people have been killed per 1 million. 15 killed per 1 million. For black people, we are at 42 million people in the country, but suffered nearly 1,600 deaths, or 38 per 1 million people. So with that analysis, the death rate of black people is double than that of white people. The death rate of black people is higher than that of white people, 2 to nearly 3 times as high. When you're talking about getting and interacting with police. Now, let's look at the victims. According to the Washington Post, an overwhelming majority of people shot and killed by police are male. Over 95% are male. 95% of the victims are male. More than half the victims are between the ages of 20 and 40 years old. This goes to show us, folks, that between that age range, there has to be some very, very important conversations about when black men are interacting with the police, how to keep themselves safe. It's not just going through the drill, keeping your hands on the wheel. It's not just, hey, saying off, talking and communicating with the officer, saying, hey, officer, I want to make sure that I can grab my license and registration. I got my license in my back pocket, got my registration in my glove box. It's not just that. It's not just that. That's not what's getting black men in particular killed. No, that's not what it is. It's about the attitude. It's about following directions. It's about ensuring that both the police officer and those black men who are being pulled over understand the dynamics of power, right? Both the officer and those black men, those brothers who are being pulled over, both have a responsibility and they're both accountable to someone else. So you want to get out of that interaction safely. You want to get out of that interaction. And folks, we've been talking about this for, not just for during the course of this show, but for the past year to 2 years, we've seen so many cases of police officers who have taken big decisions for the smallest of things. Not signaling when turning, something hanging from your rear view mirror, you not following a direct order or some direction. And in those officers' minds, it's like that is the biggest infraction, that level of quote unquote insubordination, that level of disrespect warrants you to lose your life. That's how crazy situations have gotten. So if you're talking about 20 and 40-year-olds, if you're talking about a young brother who has a hot temper, he got to cool it down. If you're talking about a police officer that has a hot temper, maybe that's not the police officer that needs to be doing those type of traffic calls or something. Or that officer calls for backup. I mean, there's so many things that has to happen. I want to bring in my culture crew member, B Fly, to get us get her take on this situation. Because folks, I don't know about you, but I'm happy that the Washington Post was able to put some new data out here to show that this is a problem. But what I'm still unhappy about is, look, we heard from the president last week, not really much of a push to get legislation, to get any type of things moving from this administration. Let's bring in B Fly right now. B, thank you so much for checking in. It's always good to talk to you. How you doing, sis?
I'm well. How are you, Farajii?
I'm all right. I'm all right. B, thinking about this scenario, this situation, right? When you look at the numbers, when you look at who's often targeted, me, us,
You.
when we look at why black men in particular are the ones that's being fatally shot by police at such a high rate, what's going through your head around this latest data from the Washington Post?
I think we need to change the language. We're dealing with murder. We're dealing with murder and the attempted murder of black men by the police. And this is a part of the constant policing system that we're constantly in, even when we are walking in our supposed freedom, you know? And so it's hard to say, well, don't run from the cops. Well, speak mild. We can apply all of the respectability politics in that it requires, but these numbers are still going to be these numbers. And you know, Farajii, at the end of the day, why was the police originally founded? You know, at the end of the day, they are literally here to capture Black bodies. And if you run
And
away,
yeah,
then you're shot in the back. And that's literally what it's been, you know, since we have been in this country trying to get free. And now that we are walking in that contradiction, we're still being murdered. You're still not safe. You know, you can wear a suit and you're still not safe. You can be a child and you're still not safe. And that's sad, you know, and it's outraging.
yeah, and that's the other part about it for me, B. Like, I'm not sure like how much madder I can get at this point, right? Because I knew that this was a problem, but to see the data, I mean, again, when you're talking about that big figure of 38 per 1 million for Black people, 15 per 1 million for white people. Now, when you go to when you go to the database, the group that's in between that are Hispanics. So while we stand at 38 per 1 million, the Latino Hispanic community, 28 per million, nearly twice as much as white people, right? So Black and brown men in particular, between the ages of 20 and 40 years old, there's a target on our backs. And when you're dealing with police at that rate, with that type of situation going, for me, it just seems like you know, you just a walking target, man. Like, I don't know how else to put it. You
Yeah,
know,
it's
you
the
put
truth. It's the truth. It's like it's a literal the idea of the police have been co-opted and have always been co-opted by the alternate idea of the Ku Klux Klan. And so as long as you have these ideas that are that continue to pour into the policing system, then you will stay under attack. And so until this system is literally dismantled, until the hiring process is different, I mean, we can go on and on, but how do you change a system that was fundamentally created to keep you in slavery, Farajii?
I mean, and that is the big part about this discussion. That is the big part about this discussion. And but I want to go to this point here though, B, and check me if I'm wrong. The point of, you know, I personally have been involved in I guess, for lack of a better word, training on what to do when the police pull you over. I remember a few years ago, in the midst of these large, you know, high profile police brutality and police shooting cases, the local chapter of the NAACP here in Baltimore, they would pass out these little cards about you know, what to do when you're stopped by the police, right? Like the steps that a person would take. And I remember getting this card and thinking to myself, does this ensure that somebody is going to walk away from that interaction? Like, if I do everything on this card, and I've done that, I'm not hostile, I'm not, you know, I'm not disrespectful or anything. Does that ensure? And it's like, you want to believe that good behavior will be rewarded where you're walking away with your life. You really, really want to believe that. You want to believe that if I just did everything the officer said, then I'm going to be fine. But then you also, the wild card of that equation is the big X factor of that equation is you don't know the attitude of the police officer. You don't know who you get. You know you, but you don't know them. You don't know what type of officer is coming. If it's officer bust your head in your ass, is it that officer or is it officer friendly? You don't know.
You don't know. You don't
And see,
know. And
that's the uncertain part about the whole scenario, right? Because the officer, just like any one of us, I understand officers have bad days. I get it. You have somebody piss you off. It may not even happen on the job. It could just simply be your wife. It could be your children. It could be some other stuff. But you don't know. And so now we got to play as a constituent, as a citizen, as the person that's getting pulled over. Now I got to read your mind, which is not fair. I got to read your mind to make sure that your mind is not hell bent on taking my mind.
And so here's it's like in this, the data supports the collective Black anxiety that exists whenever we end up being on the street with the red and blue lights. Every time, Farajii, what happens to your heart when the cops get behind you?
Man.
What happens to your heart? What happens to your pulse rate? And so,
Yep.
and at the end of the day, you can have that car. You can abide by every bit of the law. And at the end of the day, this data supports that there is more than a double percent. You know what I'm saying? Like they are not here to protect us. The police are not here
but
to
here's the
protect
thing
us,
though about that though,
you know?
B. Here's the thing about that, and this is the big thing is
Try not to cuss.
well, I get it, but the big thing for me is if you're between the ages of 20 and 40 and you're in that sweet spot of the target victims for this type of behavior, you got to really have it in your mind that you're going to walk away. Because if you my concern is, as much as you might say to yourself like, no, they're not here for us, that's going to create an attitude where you're going to be clashing with whoever officer. And that's the
Farajii, I
hard part.
feel
Like that's the mental.
we all pray that we're going to walk away. You know what I'm saying? We
Yeah, but
all.
and I'm just saying that if a person has a situation where when they're pulled over, if you already think something crazy is about to happen, you know what I mean? You're creating an energy around the scenario.
Listen, I understand that. I do. You know, the law of attraction totally plays a part in how we thrive, you know? But the same way we can't police the rape victim on how short her skirt was. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I can walk out out in the street right now in a burqa, and that does not necessarily limit the chances of me being raped. You can do, and so because of that, there is this anxiety when we walk down the street for different reasons, you know? And so this is real. But what it comes to at the end of the day is that you and I both, we fall prey to this idea of the patriarchy, of the white patriarchy, that actually feels that we are disposable and we're a threat. And so it's like we can go back and forth on how to behave in those situations, but it doesn't negate the anxiety, and it doesn't negate the fact that we can dot our I's and cross our T's and still be prey on the streets.
Yeah,
And so and that right there is the reality. So yes, a part of our super blackness is the fact that we create these mental paradigms that allow us to transcend this the BS that we've been dealt with in the land of the free and the home of the brave. And so and as a result, like this is where we are. So we thrive and we pray every day that we can come home. But
absolutely.
you know, and but how can I tell you to be more positive? It's not going to happen to you. You know, like the list can go on and on.
Yeah.
Like, and the data is literally only pulling from one particular part of the police that have been filtered through social media,
Yeah.
and also the press,
Yeah.
right? But we're not talking about the Trayvons, because Trayvon evidently isn't a part of that, because
No.
Zimmerman was not the police,
Right. Right.
right? Right. So the numbers are still skewed at the end of the day. You know what
Well,
I'm saying?
here's what I appreciate about the Washington Post. At least they got the conversation started. At least they tallying something, because the United States government ain't tallying nothing.
Listen,
The
tally
Department of
them
Justice,
checks.
the Department of Justice is not putting these numbers together. I mean, again, I'm going back to my remarks I said at the beginning of the show. It's a newspaper, it's a media outlet that's saying, okay, we need to do something. We need to do something. As part of the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, one of the things that it mentioned was the fact of coming up with a nationwide, pretty much like a nationwide tallying system, a tracking system of these types of incidents and occurrences. And so when you got to rely on a outside entity outside of the United States government who is doing the work that the Department of Justice and other institutions as part of our government should be doing, that's a sad state of affairs, right? Like, after all of this stuff, we can go back 10 years like Trayvon, and look at all the 10 years, look at all of the police killings that have happened. And you mean to tell me this country, this government still don't have have codified this situation as being a problem worth investing into, when they're tracking it, they're looking into these departments. Like, it's like these cases got to be high profile before the government does something. And that's
The
the part
government
about
is complicit. The government is complicit in the
well,
murder.
we see that now, because what President Biden
Who do
said
the
it.
police work for? The police, they're not operating on their own for-profit model.
No,
They are employees of who?
the state,
So it's like, who's an employee of who?
the government.
So yes, they're keeping tally. They have all of the data. And
But they're not
if
making
this
it
data,
public.
they're not
Like
did not
there's
support,
no. I'm sorry. Go ahead, B. I'm sorry.
if this data didn't support their agenda,
Yeah,
then the data would change.
facts.
But
I
it
agree.
does. But
I
it
agree.
does. You know, and so that's just, and that's the bitter pill to swallow.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. We're going to keep our eyes open. Like, this is something that personally, I've been saying it since this show started. I wish that we can get some more fire for policy. Let me just share this very quickly, folks, before we wrap up this part of the conversation. Because Ben Crump, the attorney Ben Crump, he reported this. Now, back in February, the Post had put out some numbers of people who were fatally shot by police nationwide. This is when it's now today. It shows that there is a huge disparity between the number of black men versus white men. But Ben Crump said in a tweet, he said, yet there have been no major changes in policing for officer-involved shooting deaths. We need meaningful reform to reduce use of force police incidents. The meaningful reform could have been the George Floyd Justice for Policing Act. The meaningful reform, I mean, there's no big pieces of legislation that is set forth before the Congress right now to address this issue. And it's like, now we're getting to a point where, hell, anything can happen. And there is nothing that can be done to remedy the situation. There's nothing that can be done to address the situation. There's nothing to be done to bring any level of accountability or consequences to those involved in the situation. And so the next Mike Brown, Trayvon Martin, the next George Floyd, Freddie Gray is it's bound to happen. The unfortunate part about it is that when the government is not investing their resources to really get the ball rolling on changing the culture of complicity, if you put out B, then guess what? We're just going to stay mad and angry as hell. But here's the flip side. The flip side of that is each time the government, and I'm saying this in 2022, each time the government misses an opportunity to do right by the people are going to respond in a very revolutionary way. Not voting, not getting involved. People are not going to believe in the whole American dream, the American experiment, American exceptionalism. None of that is going to be believed in. All of that stuff you are creating, and I'm just saying this to the government, that the government is creating folks to hate its own system, its own government. And that is going to be the real big consequence when things are left unaddressed. Anytime somebody's hurt and violated, and then nobody says, I'm sorry, I apologize, bitterness, resentment, hatefulness starts to come up in that person. And that's what we're seeing collectively. Black people have been crapped on big issues, policing, voting, and all of these things. And then you want us to still be waving flags and talking about the beauty of the country. And at this point, I don't see that happening.
It doesn't work.
You got the final word on this. What's your take?
America has a very low credit score when it comes to the banking of Black people. Cut the check. Cut the check. At the end of the day, we can't even have an educated conversation without a reparation, without an actual restorative justice. And that's really what it is we need. That's what we should be demanding. Yeah. And in the meantime, in between time, we'll continue doing the work and creating these systems that for ourselves that are helpful and are mindful for us to be able to police our own. And they are working, and we'll continue to defund what don't work.
Yep, that's facts. Hassan, just want to share very quickly before we wrap up the conversation, but folks have been checking in, and folks continue to post your comments. Sandra checked in on our YouTube page and say, is it the way we are asking the questions that we are not getting more fire for policy changes? No. Nope, Sandra. It's not the way. We shouldn't have to do all of that. We shouldn't have to figure out if we're asking the right question, because guess what? Without even saying anything, the number of cases around this issue should be speaking volumes. So I don't believe it's about asking the right question. No, they just don't want to do the right thing. That's what it comes down to. It's not about asking the right question. It's about, do you have the will to do the right thing? Doretha checked in and said the whole world is just sick and it doesn't look like things are going to get better. Not unless we organize and make things better. And Zoe checked in and said, I think technology is a tool that we can use to our advantage. They can use robots and drones to collect the person's information during traffic stops. Sound like a hell of a good idea to me. But guess what, Zoe? Are they going to listen? Doubt it. I seriously doubt it. Folks, we'll keep you posted as this conversation will continue to evolve. We got to take a quick pause. When we come right back, let's talk about Netflix. Let's talk about TikTok. Let's talk about how big tech companies are saying no to Russia and the implications of that. We'll be checking in with Professor Iron Sinwright from American University to give us the latest developments. Stay with us. It's The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Folks, welcome back to the show. We're going to switch gears because as we know that the Russian-Ukraine war continues to unfold, there have been a number of things that have been happening as a result of those bombs dropping on Ukraine. One of the big things is that tech companies are not allowing Russians to have access to their platforms and to their services. And it looks like this is not going to end anytime soon. We want to now bring in the chair of the communication study for American University, Professor Iram Sinwright, to get the latest information and developments on TikTok, Netflix, and other big tech companies and how they are dealing with this situation in Russia. Professor, thank you so much, sir, for joining us as always. How are you today?
I'm all right. How are you doing, Farajii?
I'm good. Professor, when we look at this situation, right, Russia, Ukraine, I mean, we knew that this was going to set off like a domino effect of a lot of things. I mean, from the economic side, we see the sanctions, we're seeing that Russia is being isolated. Now from the technology side, there's this level of isolation that we're seeing from big tech companies. Netflix, TikTok, I've heard Facebook was deciding to stop some of its services. My question is, do you see this? One, do you see this type of isolation, tech isolation, ending anytime soon? And two, what about the actual people of Russia who are living there, who are trying to figure things out, who want to communicate and check on their families and all of those things? This is a real big situation.
Yeah, it's super complex, right? I mean, we've spent the last 25 years talking about how the internet was going to pull the world together and bring us all closer and make it more and more difficult to unplug and to get off of the network. And now all of a sudden we have, the first, what's brewing up to be a real world war in the internet era. And, it's a lot harder to disconnect than it is to connect. There's a lot of levels of complexity here. And nobody that I've seen has like an easy kind of, one size fits all solution. And we all know that inaction is as bad as taking the wrong action.
Yeah.
So right now there's a bunch of different tech companies all trying to basically like balance between their economic self-interest, their PR self-interest, their whatever their genuine political sense of obligation is. It's a big hot mess. And as I'm glad that you pointed out, the Russian people are not waging this war. Their authoritarian president for life is, and the Russian people are going to be some of the collateral damage of these decisions.
Yeah,
Cut off from financial and information networks, and not necessarily able to communicate with the outside world with the ease that they did previously. So yeah, there's a lot going on. We can delve into various aspects of it if you like.
Yeah, I mean, definitely like to, because I know one thing for sure, that there's this sentiment, Professor, that if we cut off the economic pipeline, if we cut off the technology and communications pipeline, it's going to essentially disrupt. I mean, they won't be able to function. They won't be able to continue to wage this war. My thinking is, how true is that? Can a country continue to move forward prosecuting a war while at the same time dealing with all of its domestic issues without certain technologies?
So there are a couple of aspects to it, right? Let's there's the information networks and there's the financial networks. Let's deal with the information networks first. So Russia is not a very wealthy country, although it does have a very powerful military. But we know that for a long time, one of the crucial elements of Russian military strategy has been the disinformation campaign. I mean, like, why is Russia invading Ukraine? The real answer, of course, is because Putin wants to expand Russia back to its, Cold War border,
glory,
reintegrate all of these so-called satellite states back into Russia. But the stated purpose is to denazify the Ukraine and to stop terrorism and all this ridiculous stuff that has no foundation in reality. So in order to justify their foreign policy, they need a disinformation campaign. They have to at least create the illusion that there's some credible reason for them to be invading. And these communication networks, social media platforms, streaming media platforms, and so on and so forth, state-sponsored news platforms are foundational to that process. So there is a military strategic component to stopping these information networks. But it's not quick and dirty. I mean, it's easy to say, for instance, that RT.com, Russia Today, or Sputnik is a state-sponsored media channel. And that, Twitter user 12345 is a bot account, hosted, run by Russian disinformation agents. But there's a lot of gray area out there. You take someone like Tucker Carlson, who spreads disinformation, who has very publicly supported Putin prior to the invasion, and whose news analysis segments are featured on Russian state television. Nobody is suggesting that Tucker Carlson's going to get deplatformed.
Right.
Even though Sputnik and RT might be. So what are you going to do with that, right? So you have this major voice still spreading disinformation on every available channel. So that's complex. Then you have, companies like Meta, which owns Facebook and Instagram, trying to deplatform disinformation, but at the same time to boost the security of interpersonal communications on their social network platforms. So they're actually offering encrypted chat via Instagram to users within the Ukraine. So it's very difficult. On the one hand, they're trying to cut off certain elements of their platforms, and on the other hand, they're actually trying to boost the use of other elements of their platforms. And they're doing this all in the space of conflicting regulatory requirements, conflicting strategic requirements, right? So the U.S., for instance, American Congress right now is debating whether to cut off normal trade relationships between the U.S. and Russia. If that's the case, it's not clear yet, because we haven't had to deal with this in the past, exactly how that's going to affect the legal requirements for information service providers, right? We also have this longstanding, you and I have talked about this before, but this longstanding question of like how much federal regulators in the U.S. have the power to command social media platforms to police their networks, right? And that all ties into issues of liability, Section 230, which we've talked about, and so on and so forth. So I mean, there's no easy answer and there's no easy way to make sense of all of this. And what it ultimately comes down to is the fact that, you know, what got us into this mess in the first place is that we've kind of given online platforms free rein to develop business models that encourage people to spread disinformation, which we've talked about in the past as well.
We have talked about that extensively, and I think that's the other part of this, because, you know, Putin understands disinformation. I mean, he understands it very well, and he's going as far as to penalize his own citizens for posting or making videos or putting out any type of communication that speaks ill of the motives behind this war, from a Russian standpoint. So he understands that. So how does this work on the other side? Because at the very beginning of this conflict, Professor, there was concern and worry that Russia might respond with a cyber attack. But now that tech companies are kind of closing off their technological and communications pipelines, do you think Russia has the ability, the capacity, the power to still do that?
100%. I mean, so the irony of this situation is that Russia has been using Ukraine for over a decade to kind of test out its cyber warfare weaponry. And, you know, they've done all kinds of things like, crashing the electrical networks or crashing the communications networks or cutting off access to state websites. There is unquestionably going to be serious cybersecurity fallout from this war between Russia and Ukraine. The problem is that once let's say that that Russia wants to cut off Ukraine's ability to generate its own power, right? It can feed a virus essentially into the computer systems that run Ukraine's power grid, but it doesn't have the power to stop the virus at that point. Right? The way the computer viruses work is they opportunistically take advantage of whatever flaws in cybersecurity they can and spread as rapidly as they can through the network, just like a real virus does, basically. So what we're likely to see is a lot of fallout around the world, a lot of collateral damage, as all of the parties that have an interest in this military confrontation release their own forms of cyber warfare into the global networks that we all share. And I think we can expect to see some unpredictable fallout from that. We might see blackouts in nations that are thousands of miles away from Ukraine. We might see global shipping routes or airline routes or supply chain disruptions.
Wow.
Yeah, we might see people's personal devices getting bricked. There's no way to predict it, but what we do know is that Russia is interested in the use of those kinds of weapons and that they've used them in the past.
And so for us here on this side of the water, Professor, you know, you talked about those blackouts, you talking about those hiccups and those disruptions in our supply chain. Will the services that we come to know, love, embrace, Netflix and all of those things, I mean, is this going to lead to a anti-Russia campaign? Because I'm starting to see it, a little bit of it in other spaces, but from a technology field, one of our watchers brought it up saying, you know, is Netflix removing all of its Russian movies? Like, are we start to see that any type of Russian information, Russian movies, anything that's related to Russia and on this side of the water, is that going to all be removed from those platforms and from those technologies?
There's no way to predict exactly which steps each of these platforms is going to take. Right now, they seem to be pretty cautious in terms of merely deactivating, not doing business within Russia. And, to a certain extent, a company like Netflix is now giving non-subscribers free access to Ukrainian filmed entertainment as a way to kind of support the Ukrainian cause and support Americans' interest in what's going on in the Ukraine. But there's certainly a risk that there will be a jingoistic, backlash against Russian culture in general. And like we were talking about before, that would be a shame, because there's like millions of wonderful people in Russia doing millions of wonderful things, and it's not their fault that they have, an autocratic, authoritarian regime that's, that's launching a world war.
Yeah.
So yeah, there will be a lot of collateral damage to people who have done nothing wrong. It's hard to cut off financial and information networks with surgical precision. So there's always going to be a lot of false positives, a lot of people who end up suffering without having done anything, and a lot of by the same token, a lot of wrongdoers who slip through the net. There have been sanctions against certain Russian billionaire oligarchs, but there are other ones who have not been sanctioned yet. And it's not clear that their financial networks are going to be effectively cut down.
What about, Professor? What about we talked about this on this show? What about those African brothers and sisters? What about those who traveled from Nigeria and from other parts of the world, went to school? Those African students that were having a real problem, and the word is that they actually have been able to leave Ukraine at this point. But what about them? How where do they fit into this? Because as much as we've been talking about Ukraine, I think another big narrative is the treatment of African students by the Ukrainian government. Are African students, will they be supported, or will they be in a place where their voices won't be heard in any of these tech spaces?
100%. That is I have no way of predicting what's going to happen. I do know that there have been, I know that two things are true. One is that Black people trying to travel across the border have seen a level of resistance and obstacles that other refugees from Ukraine have not seen. And that's very real. I also know that Russian disinformation networks are amplifying those kinds of stories, trying to create a sense among Black Americans that Ukraine is not a country worth defending. And so when you see those kinds of social media posts about these students who are having trouble leaving the country, you have to ask, like, what's the origin of that particular story? Is this a legitimate story, or is it not? Is this a story that's being promoted by Russian disinformation or state media operatives because they want to strengthen the image of Ukraine as a racist country that's worthy of invasion? And what you have to remember is that Russia is not exactly an inclusive and welcoming culture and country itself, and that that whether you're talking about race or LGBT issues, Russia has been has exemplified some of the worst forms of bias and discrimination that we've seen out there in the world. And so, chalk it up to more collateral damage. This is like the situation where, like, all of a sudden you'll see right-wing commentators talking about how they're anti-Semitic in Ukraine, even though they have a Jewish president. And, these are the same stations that complain about, like, war on Christmas, who are not afraid of using anti-Semitic tropes themselves when it suits their purposes. Mm-hmm. So two things can be true at the same time. There can be real racism, and there can also be trumped up racism in order to create a sense of false equivalence between the aggressor and the victim in this conflict.
Manufactured racism and real racism. And I think that is the big part of this whole conversation, Professor. The fact is like, when I had spoken to a journalist last week, Laura Alabas, she's out of Palestine, and she said that, they have found on social media platforms videos from old conflicts that are being circulated right now as if these images are coming from this new situation, this new conflict. And I'm like, wow. But unfortunately, as us as the American people, we're on this side of the water. We're getting our news from, these media sources, and we're not able to distinguish or differentiate between, oh, this is old and this is new. You know what I mean? Because the propaganda around Russia, the propaganda around Ukraine is all still very muddled.
Yeah, and yesterday Reuters, the top tier international news service, posted a video that Russian state media had given them, claiming to be Russian tanks in the middle of the Ukraine, but it was snowing in the video. And Reuters didn't fact check the video itself, but people online started saying, wait a second, it's not snowing in the Ukraine. This must be an old video clip. And Reuters had to take down their social media posts because they messed up. They accidentally reproduced Russian disinformation. So it's not just like Twitter user ABCDE12345 or like, the Facebook We Heart Russia group. It's like major news organizations are getting bamboozled in the same way. So what that means that every single one of us who's reading the news, who's looking at social media, who's trying to make up our minds how to feel and what to do about this, we have to be extremely skeptical about every single piece of information that crosses our desk and look for confirmation from numerous trusted sources before we believe what we see.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Professor Iram Sinwright from American University serves as the chair of the Communication Study Department at American. Professors, always good to talk to you. Thank you so much for bringing us up to speed on this. And I'm going to keep my eyes on this. I know that there's Netflix, TikTok, Disney has paused all its theatrical releases. Warner Brothers has said that they're not going to be showing Batman in theaters. It's this, like you said at the very beginning of this conversation, Professor, it's complex, it's messy, and I just don't see an end for this. I think everybody's assuming that this thing is going to end pretty soon. If you isolate this country, they're going to give up. I just don't see it personally, but only time will tell.
Yeah, none of us has a crystal ball.
None of us have a crystal ball. Professor, thank you so much for your time today. We truly appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks.
All right, folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come back, let's talk about, could you imagine working only 3 days a week in the office, 2 days from home, or just working 3 days a week? In the state of New York, the governor is saying that this is possible. She wants to make this possible. And now, because we have all undergone being in the house due to the pandemic, there is a very, very big conversation around changing the work week for people forever. We'll have that conversation with Culture Crew, B Fly, and Nira Muhammad. Stay with us, and a whole lot more is coming at you in the next hour of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. We'll be right back.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
All right, folks, welcome back to the second hour of today's show. We just had some great first hour talking about everything from tech companies freezing out Russia to some of the latest data around police shootings. Now we want to shift the conversation to the politics of work. Folks, if you have not kept up on this, ever since this pandemic started, we have been in a different conversation about how Americans work. And so because things are just really opening back up, mask mandates are being lifted, people are finding and employers are finding that people may not want to come back to the office. This is what the big conundrum that the state of New York is facing right now. And New York Governor Kathy Hochul says that the pandemic has, quote unquote, killed the traditional work week, and there may never be a 5-day week again. Now she wants to open offices at least 3 days a week to spur economic recovery. Well, there are a couple of companies that are having this same conversation. For example, Twitter and Google commit to work from home days. That's those are two of the biggest ones. Also, Google said it would reopen its offices nationwide on April 4th and require employees to come to work at least 3 days a week. Twitter said it would reopen by March 15th, but said employees were free to work from home forever. Now, this was a promise made by the co-founder, Jack Dorsey. I want us to have a conversation about this because I think this is absolutely fascinating that we're in this space around work. Now, I know personally I've been working from home, and you have the hybrid model where people are working from home and going in a couple of days of work. But how would you feel if you worked 3 days a week from home, or 4 days, or even 5 days a week? Like, how would you feel like this is our new work model? Let me bring in my culture crew. Let me bring in B Fly to come back into this part of the conversation. B, thank you so much for checking in. And I think in a few moments we'll be joined by Nira Muhammad as well. But B, oh my gosh, there we go. We got Nira on the line because who is working? She's just finished working, actually. So having the conversation, B Fly, who serves as one of the co-founders of Blackwater production house, Nira Muhammad, host of Queen Talks with Nira Muhammad on all streaming platforms, is checking in as well. Ladies, always good to talk to the both of you on a Monday. So
shout out Nira. What's up, Nira?
Hi, B. How are you?
I am well. How you, girl?
Girl,
I can just go on like mute or something at this point.
You can, because we need that 3-day work week.
3-day work week.
3.
All right, so check this out. So B, the idea of working from home. Now you are I know. Look, I because I know you. You are a personal friend. You don't like any type of boundaries on your talents or your creativity. So, so the idea of working from home, the idea of shortening the work week. What's your take on that?
It's necessary. And thank God the pandemic has shifted the thinking, and so I believe that it's just one of those little perks that go along with bridging in a little bit more of a socialist economy that we experienced in the pandemic, and that evidently we're still holding on to. And so it's like there's certain things, once you get a piece of the good life, you ain't gonna go back. And so it's necessary, for the employers, for the job market to really understand that in order to maximize today's employee, we definitely have to understand that it's about working smarter and not harder. And we did learn how to as a collective still continue working from home. So because of that, it's like that's progress. So let's continue progressing, and we have to levelize these playing fields. And what we learned during the pandemic is that women ended up carrying the brunt of this load,
Yep.
double time, still at work and still managing the children. And so now that we have, now that everyone is used to this dynamic, it's time for us to really be mindful with the way we all go back into that work dynamic,
Yeah.
So we have to impress upon our new interviews and our new employers, that we're not going for the 5-day work week. It doesn't benefit anyone at the end of the day, and that's not going to decrease my pay.
I hear that.
Let's be clear.
Hey, let's be very clear. Dear, I know that one of the things that that was brought up in this part of the conversation has been one, and to B's point, we obviously know that work can still be done, productivities can still be high. Companies aren't folding dramatically because people work from home. People working from home doesn't necessarily mean that a company is going to close its doors. But I think that this idea that we have to work all the time, where we have quote unquote workaholics. You've been in the other parts of the world. They don't work quite as much as Americans do. And guess what?
They're happier.
Hey, they're happier, and their country is still functioning.
For sure.
So what's your take on this?
To be honest, Farajii, I think that shortening the work week is amazing. This is actually my first time going back to work after the pandemic. So when the pandemic hit, I was teaching 5th grade at the time. And I remember like my kids went to school. That Friday we had like a professional development day, and then we were out. Like we never went back. So I've only been back in the classroom for a week, and I can tell you my body is definitely feeling it. But again, I also work in education. Do I think the kids should only have to come to school 3 days a week?
Yes.
Absolutely not. Do I think the kids should only come to school 4 days a week? Absolutely not. Do I think kids need 5 days of school? Absolutely. So I think it really depends on the field that you're working in. Again, as B Fly mentioned, productivity actually went up with COVID. People were actually working more from home than what they were working in the office. And I think it's because bosses kind of figured, oh, you're home all day. I think that was a big complaint that I saw. People were saying that their bosses were texting all hours of the day. You really felt like you don't have any time off. I know for me, working from home, teaching from home, I felt like my students were in my home, and I did not like it. It felt it's like bringing work home. It just didn't feel like it was home anymore. I also felt like I needed to come back into the classroom because I started getting depressed. Being home every day was starting to become a little bit depressing for me. I started finding myself laying around a lot more. A lot of people can say I gained a lot of weight during COVID. Thankfully, I've lost that weight, but I think a lot more people gained a lot more weight during that time. So I think there are pros and cons to working from home, but I will say that it truly depends on what field you work in. That's a big deal, because I know people that are sitting home all day, not even getting up, and they're just getting fat.
Yeah, I mean that's true.
Because they're just not. They're just, I mean, and I'm not even trying to be mean. Like I'm not even trying to be mean. Like there are literally people who now order their groceries.
Yeah.
They don't go to the market anymore. I mean, you're literally just sitting home all day. You're not going out. I don't think that's healthy at all.
No, it's not healthy. It's not healthy at all. But one of the big things that I think that you mentioned was something that one of our watchers, McCole, said. Some professions can work from home. Teachers, medical professions, professionals, retail workers cannot work from home. So there's still
exactly. I need to be here.
Yeah, there's still you still need to be there. But I think to the other part of your point, which is your mental health, I think that is like paramount, right? Because in the moment of these companies adjusting to folks wanting to work from home, the other part of that is that folks are feeling like, you know what, why am I giving so much of my time to an energy to an effort that I'm not really gaining from? Yes, I get paid for my job, but my job is not, quote unquote, worth all of the additional stress, worth taking work home. It's not worth taking me away from my time or my family's time.
But that's the thing. To me, when I worked from home, I felt like I worked from home more. Like I felt like I did not have a separation between work and home. Yeah. It all felt like it was one big bubble. I don't like that feeling. I need separation. No, don't get me wrong. I'm a business owner. So I do do a lot of work from home, but I can say even in that year of being a business owner and being home, I started getting depressed. I noticed I was staying in bed a lot longer. You can attest to it. My curtains are staying closed a lot longer. So again, it also depends on your personality. How driven are you? Are you a self-starter? Are you a self-motivator? Are you somebody who can get up at 7 o'clock every morning, and stick to a routine? Or you are the type person like me who's like, well, I'm not really a morning person. So if I can stay in bed till 10, I am. And then sometimes 10 might trickle into 11. So again, it just depends on your personality, what works better for you. Point. Personally, for me, I think I would do better with a hybrid type of model where it's like I go in for a couple of days, I stay home for a couple of days. Me being home every day is not healthy for my mental health.
This doesn't work for you. And you know what, me? And I mean, I think that's the other part of it, right? Like, you got to be very clear about what works best for you. It's like when people ask you during an interview, what is your work style? How do you thrive? What kind of environment do you do well in? You got to know yourself, because I'm the type, I personally, I need to leave the house. Like I need to leave the house because I need, maybe it's my compartmentalized thinking, but I need to leave the house. Okay, I've done that for the day. Let me come home. Because I'm like Nira, I don't like bringing my work home. Like I really don't like doing it because my home is my sanctuary.
I think what there's a difference between being on house arrest and working from home, and we as a collective were on house arrest and we made it do what it do. Okay. Right. But so I don't think we're saying, yay, let's go back into house arrest. No, but being able to create a more balanced work-life experience is necessary. And so when we talk about the little factor about spurring economic growth, I think more teachers would allow teaching to be a more beneficial experience to the teacher as well, and so it's like, so when we look at the full system of what the teachers and the students are going through during that 5-day work week, we can examine it in a more mindful way now that we've experienced house arrest, and so I do think it's a great thing for us to start examining that 40-hour idea. Like, do I really have to put in, and do we really have to tell our children, you must put in 40 to 50 hours a week of outside of your natural environment in order to be productive in society? Like, that's the part that at this point we are turning upside down and we're able to investigate, so I know I've adopted that 3-4 day work week. Long time ago.
Yeah. You said you said before the pandemic. You right?
But you know what's funny? I'm sorry, but I personally think I work way more as an entrepreneur than what I do in my field. Trying to grow a business that is sustainable, that I can pay my bills. And I'm not talking about a little side hustle. I'm talking about a real legitimate business where you can pay yourself, your bills, sustain yourself, pay employees. That takes a lot of time. If anybody thinks that they're going to start a business and be successful working 5 hours a day, good luck. Have a good time.
No, but see, but
you know what I mean? Like it's unreal. We have social media has now given unrealistic expectations to being an entrepreneur all over Facebook. All I see is start your LLC, and doing what? Do you have a business model? Do you have a business plan? What goods and services are you providing? How much time are you putting in it? Do you have startup money? Are you using your own? There's so much more to starting a business than going online and paying $300 to start an LLC. Stop playing, people. Stop playing.
But that's not really what we're not talking about the
No, I know. I'm just saying, like, people like, I just want to work my own business so I don't have to work as much. I'm just like, that's not the reality.
No, that's not the what I was referring to was the fact that pre-pandemic, I was literally a stay-at-home mother. So like when I talk about house arrest, I'm talking about it from a lens of I've been on house arrest for longer than a pandemic. And so once pandemic hit, I was able to figure out ways to start working again while everybody had to figure that out as well. So what I'm saying, the data that we have all gained from that experience should denote that nobody has to work their fingers to the bone anymore in order to go into and pay into this American dream. I think we've realized that we can balance that, and being able to be mindful in our homes is a part of that. Like we should be able to continue to have time to grow a tomato.
Right.
We experienced that in pandemic, and so what happens to our businesses when we are able to apply that level of mindfulness with our families and with our time? Like, I don't think it's going to disrupt the wave of entrepreneurship. I actually think it's going to decrease all of our health issues. It's going to decrease those heart diseases. It's going to actually give you some time to commit to some self-care, because now we can balance the busy work versus the actual work. And we all know that a lot of that 40-50 hour per week work life is a lot of busy work. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like when we can create automized systems that do give us our time back, let's get that, and then go into those new interviews like demanding that time that we can actually see our children grow up. Once upon a time, we were only literally seeing them 2 days a week. Today, it makes sense to be able to demand for more time.
And you know what? And first and foremost, B, I gotta say that should be a campaign slogan. Give us our time back around this issue, right? Because I feel like that's one of the big things. But two, I'm wondering, and folks are in the chat asking the same question: is the government, this government of a capitalistic society, this capitalistic place that we're in, is the government truly ready for this level of revolution where the citizens are pushing back on less work days, more time to do other things?
I just see this becoming a thing where people, like, everyone says it now, and then once it happens, people are going to complain about it. Oh, there's not enough cashiers in the store today. I hear all these things in theory, but like seeing them put into practice is like another thing. And I just see this becoming another issue where people are going to start complaining about, there weren't enough people to fix my car because they only work these days a week. I mean, and I'm not saying that that's necessarily a bad thing. I just think that we have to really think this through. Like, how is this going to look? How are we going to get paid? Or is our salaries going to stay the same? Are we still going to work, are we gonna work 4 days a week? And I do think that's possible. Personally, I think we should be on a 4-day work week. Other countries are on 4-day work weeks, and they're doing such a phenomenal job on 4-day work weeks. But again, how is that going? I mean, Chick-fil-A is only closed on Sundays, and people complain about that. So I'm just like, I'm serious. Like, do we close stuff down? B just mentioned itemizing some things. Certain stores now have Walmart, Target, grocery stores. They have self-checkout. I hear people complain about self-checkout. I don't work here. Why do I need it? I'm not checking on my own stuff. Oh, they're doing self-checkout. That's cutting down on jobs. But didn't we say we wanted to cut down on jobs? Like, we gotta stop complaining. Like, which one is it? Pick a side. Personally, I like self-checkout. I'm gonna just graze my stuff and keep it moving. But some people are offended by self-checkout. That's how the American people think.
Well, right. So we call for change. Like, our culture is we want change, but then we don't want change fast. Then we want change to happen quicker, only to realize that we didn't like the change in the beginning.
Go back. We need more workers. I don't want to check out most.
So let me share with you.
A lot of first world problems.
Right. Let me share with you what some folks are checking in and saying. A lot of people are having this conversation, YouTube and Facebook. Tyler checked in. Companies are saving a ton of money not having to pay these overinflated commercial rents. This would free up more money to pay employees for using their home to conduct company business. That could happen.
It's not going to happen. CEOs are not going to do. I can say CEO is not going to do that. They're not going to say, "I'm going to pay you more because I don't have to pay overhead." They're going to say, "Well, more money for me, hey," and you can get a 50-cent raise, bro. 50 cents.
Right.
But I do hope that we're itemizing your taxes a little bit, like as a result of working from home. You understand? Like, so there are ways that the system is set up for you to benefit from these changes, and so, but sometimes your employer won't tell you, but we can't they're not going to share their profits with you. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the part. Like, they're not going to be like, "Oh, we made an extra $56 billion this quarter. Let's go ahead and give it to the teachers because they were working from home and their home was the school." So
could you imagine Elon Musk? I don't
founder
have
of Tesla.
I'm gonna give y'all some more money. Like,
right.
Yeah, right. Elon's not gonna do that. In fact, Elon Musk
he could give you.
He's gonna tell you, "I work 70 hours a week
right now."
I mean, this man will literally tell you, like, "I work 70 hours a week." Like, people look at him like, "Oh, you're so rich." But he's like, "I work 70 hours a week. I have no relationships. I don't want a life like Elon Musk. I don't care how much money he has." No. That man said he does not sleep. He doesn't have good relationships. Like, I don't want to work 70 hours a week to be Elon Musk.
That's a terrible place to be. That's terrible. All right, Janelle checked in and said, "Look, keep in mind, work from home will alter promotions. If you ain't being seen, you ain't going to be considered more for higher promos."
That's another thought.
It depends on what your deliverable is. I beg to differ. It depends on what your deliverable is, and it depends on what tier you're working in at the company, and which goes down to the deliverable, So I'm not necessarily quick to say that the person who works from home isn't going to be promoted, because let's say they're working in social media content management. Yes, they could easily be promoted and they never walk into a building. And if your company doesn't have social media management, how is your company even going to scale today?
Well, that's what
I guess it really depends on the field.
There it is. I was literally just going to say that. Sometimes you can transfer people back into the home, and other fields you can't. Like with Nira working from home, she had to make a space, a classroom space in the spare room, so that way she can create the element that, like, she's in the classroom. But that took a lot of work. That takes a lot. You got to bring all your supplies home. You got to bring all of this other, all this other stuff that comes along with.
Let me just say,
that takes a lot of work.
Virtually was a fucking nightmare. It was a nightmare. I mean, just like the fact that, I'm teaching right now. Like, I don't have a support right now. My support is out. But, like, as I'm teaching, just to being able to just go around and just look at their paper and even just a point and say, check number 3, Look at number 2. That is so invaluable. Like having that connection with my students, being able to see them physically is so important. Like teaching virtually, we may do, but oh my God, you've really felt the difference. Like I genuinely cannot wait to get back in the class. We're taking our masks off next week. I'm not going to lie. My mask is coming off. I want to see their beautiful faces. I want them to see my face. That connection that we have pre-COVID in terms of school is just so is invaluable. Everything else, thank you, COVID. But school, the amount of kids that have been set back academically because of COVID is insane. There are kids whose parents never logged them on. They have internet. The school gave them internet. They got iPads. They had Google Chromebooks. Never came to class one day.
Absolutely. And so when you're talking about that, there has to be a whole culture shift. Anytime a shift that occurs within the culture, there has to be first an attitude shift. I think if we're going to have a very real conversation about shortening the work week, then I think then we all have to check ourselves on how we see work. What is our view of work? Because it's part of our culture that as much as we can talk about the Elon Musk and the Bill Gates and how much time they spent and they built this empire, there is another segment of people who don't want to work quite as hard, and yet they still want to get the big reward at the end. And there has to be a culture shift around work. Work should not be a situation where it defines you. It should just be an outgrowth of what you do, right? Work should not be, like you mentioned it, being at home is a prison sentence. Going to work should not be a prison sentence.
At all.
Seriously, like if you're supporting yourself and your family, and if you don't like your job, then you need to change that shit, man. Like you really need to change your job, or you need to change your skills, go back to school, take a couple of classes. Something needs to change.
Yeah, there's certifications now that you can get that you don't have to spend a whole lot of money going back to school. Like I was literally torn between getting my master's degree, and I was like, you know what? No, I'm a part of a film program. I was able to just pay it out of pocket versus taking out all this money to go to college when really I just needed to take this film and TV certification course. That was smart. I was like, you know what? No, I don't want any more student loans. For what? Absolutely not. So, there are so many certification programs out there. I know guys right now who have a CDL and are making more than I make.
Right.
And I'm a teacher.
And you're a teacher. You cultivating minds.
I had to go to college.
Right.
I had to get certified. These jokers drive a truck and they making more money than teachers.
Right. And see, again, this, and if we're starting to, and I'm glad you brought that up, because if we start in the conversation about changing the work week, then pay has to change. Now we're really starting to push on, well, should certain professions get paid more than others? And crazy amounts more. Should athletes get paid more than others? Than people that have actual, power to cause life or death in people. Like there needs to be some big conversations. Sonia wanted me to tell you, Nira, that people are going to complain no matter what the situation is.
Thank you, sis. That's what I said.
People are going to complain no matter what the situation is. And then Jetune checked in and said, capitalism don't like people, period. Unfortunately, though, that's the system that we live in. We don't live in a socialist society. We don't live in a communist society. We live in a capitalist society. So the dollar profits are going to come way before people. And again, if we're talking about at least shortening this work week, we have to look at the value of people's mental health, the value of people's time, and the value of people's skills, and not just look at their profits. And that's the big thing I have to say for that. So it's
funny though, Farajii, that you mentioned that, because it literally what you just said just took me back to the primaries when we were voting between Biden and Bernie. And I remember everybody just kept saying Bernie's he's a radical socialist. He's a socialist. And I kept saying, what the is wrong with that? Bernie actually gives a shit about people. Y'all telling this man a radical socialist because he's like, yo, we legitimately need change. We keep saying we need change, but we never change it. And then all these black folks gonna go vote for Biden. And I'm just like, So y'all want more of the same that we've already had. We don't want change. We want to complain. We don't want change. That's what
That's why I voted for Kanye. That's exactly why I voted for Kanye.
And I feel you, because I was not I'm sick of voting between shitty people. Like I've been Team Bernie from the very beginning because I just genuinely agree with his views. Like I'm probably a socialist. Like I'm so sick of this being like this dog eat dog world where you have people so high at the top that we just barely even have a middle class anymore. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of the fact that being a teacher, I need to be married in order to live in a decent home, because even as a teacher, I can't afford to live on my own. I'm sick of that. Why go to college to still struggle? You promised us, my generation, millennials, that if we went to college, we could get a good job and we could live the American dream, not stress about how to pay back student loans. That was not a part of the deal.
That wasn't a part of the conversation. That's definitely not a part of the conversation. Look, I got to end this part of the conversation, though, right here, just because we got to take another break. When we come back, let's shift gears. I want to talk about some of the top women that Time Magazine has chosen, some of the top 5 Black women that have made the Time Women of the Year. So we'll have that conversation. Plus, we got trends, post, and doing the most. Stay with us, folks. We got a lot to get to in the final 30 of the culture right here on Black Star Network with the Culture Crew.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all. All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home. You dig?
All right, welcome back to the show, folks. Time Magazine is making history with its latest picks. They have decided to choose 5 Black women for their 2022 Women of the Year list. Let me share with you these 5 dynamic sisters. Allison Felix, who is a 7-time Olympic gold medalist, had another banner year in 2021. She won 2 medals at the Tokyo Olympics, becoming the most decorated woman in track and field, wearing shoes made by Sash. It's a brand she launched just weeks before the game. She also pointed out the double standard between female and male athletes in the sports industry. In 2019, she wrote an op-ed for the New York Times alleging that Nike, her sponsor, wanted her to pay 70% less after she had a child, pointing out that the industry made rules mostly for and by men. So Allison Felix is one of the women that we will be honoring on Time Magazine. Amanda Gorman. Y'all know who Amanda Gorman is, right? Yep, that little sister right there. She busted onto the national scene when she recited her poem, The Hill We Climbed, during President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris's inauguration, becoming the youngest inaugural poet in U.S. history. She was also the first person to be named National Youth Poet Laureate. And check this out. Just last year, she published 3 books. The Hill We Climb, a hardcover edition of her inaugural poem, the picture book Change Sings, a children's anthem, and Call Us What We Carry, which is her latest collection of poetry. So, Amanda, congratulations. Sherilyn Eiffel. Sherilyn has been the president and director counsel of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund for the last 9 years. She's a law professor that has implemented an intersectional focus with her work at the nation's oldest civil rights organization, arguing that everything the NAACP does impacts the lives of women. Although she will resign from her position on March 14th, she says that the NAACP is committed to fighting for equality. There was even some conversation that Sherilyn Eiffel would be President Biden's nominee for the Supreme Court. Her name was thrown into the mix, but congratulations, Sherilyn. We got to get her on the show. Jenny Joseph. She is a British-trained midwife who has made maternal mortality crisis that Black women face her life work. She became one of the world's most highly regulated midwives and foremost authority on women's health concerning healthy pregnancies, healthy deliveries, and healthy babies. She's an advocate for the maternal well-being of Black women and believes her vocation is to create a safe space for Black families. With the U.S. having the worst maternal death rate of any developed country in the world and impacting Black women even more, her work is more essential now for the Black community to flourish. So congratulations, Jenny Joseph. And certainly last but not least is Kerry Washington. Y'all remember Kerry? Look, Kerry Washington doing it up. She's not only an Emmy award-winning actress, but she's also a political activist with plans to make an impact in the world. She views her work as an actress as an extension of her activism. She gave a speech at the LA Women's March in 2017. She campaigned for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris in 2020 and worked with Stacey Abrams to get out the vote in the 2021 Georgia runoff. So she has been chosen as Time's Women of the Year. Let me go to my fantastic ladies. My Women of the Year. The first one is definitely my Women of the Year. The second one, she cool. But let me go to my Women of the Year. Nira Muhammad, first and foremost, host of Queen Talk Podcast, Queen Talks with Nira Podcast. Nira, what you think of this list? 5 Black women, Time Magazine Women of the Year.
I think it's beautiful. I love that they're all so decorated and colorful. They all do something different. We have our athlete, we got our journalist, we have our actress. I think it's so beautiful. I love to see my Black women getting the recognition that they so deserve. It's long overdue. Give them their flowers while they are living. I love it. B,
what's your take on this? 5 dynamic Black women.
You know, all of these women are totally worthy and up for their just due, you know? And so it's I'm grateful to be learning about a couple of them, you know, and can't wait to see more, you know, from them and from us, you know? And so I hope that each year these numbers grow.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's really dope that we're checking off so many categories that time is understanding, you know, the vastness, you know, and so we're not just relegated to entertainment and sports, you know, and I think it's dope to recognize the legal monarchs, you know, and this is great. Science is necessary, and when it comes to the Black maternal like morbidity rate, like no one is going to be able to really deal with that and investigate these shocking rates better than us. And so let's just keep on keeping on, you know, and shout out to the women who aren't recognized, you know, who do the work on a regular basis, you know. That's what we do, Farajii, you know, whether we're acknowledged or not.
That's really why I'm you know, I like to have conversations about this, because one, I hope that it will inspire people, right? But then two, you just said it, be like, just to make sure that behind every woman there is an unsung hero. There's another woman that have allowed Kerry Washington, Amanda Gorman, you know, behind Amanda Gorman is her mom, you know, behind Allison Felix is probably her coach. You know what I mean? Like behind every woman, there's another woman there that's kind of pushing that woman to be out in the forefront. So, you know, I mean, and I know, Nira, that some people, they take these lists and they say, oh my gosh, like these women are the only women that are doing fantastic things. And it's hard to put these lists together, or it's hard to choose a woman of the year, because somebody is always could be doing more. You know what I mean? Somebody, you know, so it's hard, but I'm glad that these.
I like the list. I think the list is very realistic. I think the list is colorful. Like B and I were just saying, like they didn't just stick with like one type of woman. They didn't just say like, oh, we're only going to get actresses or athletes. Like to have a woman on there who deals with like, you know, the mortality rate of Black women in pregnancy, like that's, you know, making sure the babies are born healthy. Like that's a big deal. Like how often do you even hear? I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little bit tired of hearing Amanda Gorman's name, but
she said it.
I'm okay with her. I'm okay with her making the list because she's so young. To have published 3 books last year is phenomenal, and which, you know, of course she did because she's who she is. So getting the publishing deal is going to be easy. Look at all these other conditions, but no, I think it's a really great list. I think that I definitely want to see more names on the list that we've never heard of. Yeah. Like I would like to see a list that has like no one famous.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, I'm just saying personally, because, you know, when we talk about poets, we always talk about Amanda Gorman now. She's not the only Black woman that's a poet. She's not the best Black woman that's a poet, but we always talk about her now. So I want to see other Black women get that recognition as well, because I think there's so many other dope poets out there. But for now, I think the list is great. It's a good start. We got to start somewhere. And rock on, ladies.
And you know, one of the other things, one of our watchers, he's been watching and he's been a full supporter. He asked about Sheila Jackson Lee. What about Vice President Kamala Harris? And I would just say, you know, for both of them, powerful women, but you know, they do get that a lot of recognition. I feel like when you do these Time, or you know, Time, maybe not Time is the best example, but anytime you put lists together, you know, it's like even with us starting this show, it's like we could always try to get people who folks know, right? Or we can get into the space of developing new voices, of cultivating new talent, of showcasing, you know what I mean, fresh, you know, the next generation. That's why I don't have to have big names to be a part of to make this show great, because I think that the people that I have involved on this show, that are part of this culture crew, you guys, in particular, you women, are make the show great. So I don't need to have, quote unquote, oh, I need to have this person, that person, so people can. No, I want to make sure that people hear you, because y'all all have dynamic personalities. Y'all all bring something different to the table. And so what if people don't know who you are? But after they hear you, after they listen to you, they will know who you are.
For sure.
So that's the big thing for me. I think that we always should give credit to the unsung heroes and make a space for them. You know what I'm saying, B? What's your take?
You know, as a rapper, I totally co-sign that message. We have a poet on the list, but we don't have any MCs on that list.
Who would you put down? Wait a minute. All right, let's do this very quickly. We want to do this very quickly. B, who would be one woman that you would put on a list that's not on this list?
Okay, so let me see here. If I had to just insert a rapper of the year, right, that is not Kanye, I would want to insert Sampa the Great.
Who?
I'm just Sampa the Great. Okay, I would. Sampa got me through pandemic in a way that that no one else did. No one else did, and she also inspires my wake up, motivate mind. So if I were to take away one and then just hack the system and insert another one, yes, I would go ahead and insert Sampa the Great, because she is great and is worthy of everyone understanding why
there it is. There it is. That's
Mm-hmm.
what's up right there. I don't know who I would add. I don't know who I would have to really think about one. So that would be a trick. That would be a hard question for me to answer. I don't know who I would add. I don't know who I would get.
That's a whole other conversation.
That is a whole other conversation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'll probably throw Nero.
I'm still waiting for.
All right, I'll just throw Nero on there just to keep the home peaceful.
You better.
I'm like, what did I miss? I'm in a Baltimore City school building, so my internet.
I was just saying, I'll throw you on the list just to keep things peaceful. Why not? Let's throw Nero Muhammad on the list.
Are some of the top 5 women? The time?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, please.
Right.
Oh,
all right, real quick. Who would you put on the list then? Who would you put on? Any particular
that's
woman?
Hard. Oh my gosh.
That is hard, right?
That's so hard.
B had her woman already.
Dang, B, who did you say?
I put Sampa the Great. I just threw in, another MC, for reals. She's awesome. So yes,
I'm not gonna lie. I kind of think Meg Thee Stallion actually would have been good. Hear me out.
Oh,
hear me out.
She been through a lot.
She has been through a lot.
Okay.
I think what I like about Meg Thee Stallion is that she shows that you don't have to choose between being educated and then also following your dreams of becoming a rapper. Because I think a lot, when I hear students say when they grow up they want to be a rapper, they think that means that, oh, I don't need an education.
Right.
And so I do like the fact that she's showing okay, yes, I might have this voluptuous body, I might look the show, but I'm still educated. Right. And I think that's what our girls need to see. I'm tired of women and girls feeling they have to choose between being sexy or smart when you could be both. So I think
you can be a hoe and a housewife. We have to
thank you.
People understand.
I became a housewife because I was a hoe. Duh.
Thank you. You understand. And boom, the TED Talk.
Boom. That's my
right. Bing bong. Okay, here we go.
That on the next edition.
Bing bong.
Got you.
All right, look, I gotta take a quick pause. When we come back, trends. What is it? Trends posted doing the most. Stay with us. It's the Culture Black Network.
Sorry. Oh my God, it was so funny.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Hi, Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for a Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. Time for Trends, Posts, and Doing the Most, where we tell you about some of the latest topics that people are talking about, some of the funniest, craziest things that people are talking about. All right, so if you've watched the whole documentary Genius, featuring the rise of Kanye West, you would know that that was truly an inspiring piece of work, right? To see him, this 20 years in the making. That we saw Kanye, and that documentary came out of that experience. But one person did not expect Kanye to get to the point that he is at right now. And that is the man that the first person to sign Kanye to a record label, which is none other than Rockefeller co-founder Dame Dash. He never expected Kanye's rise to fame. In 1995, he teamed up with him and Jay-Z. Of course, they started, and Kareem Biggs Burke. They launched Rockefeller Records, and then they had a host of artists. And I know both of y'all know this. I mean, you know, they were just the record label. Kanye was trying to get signed, and eventually it was Dame Dash that signed Kanye to the label. And even though he signed him, he still did not have full faith that Kanye was the rapper. He signed him, but they were still seeing him as a producer. But now he says pretty much, I was wrong. I was wrong. That's a hell of a thing, though, dear, when you think about that. You know what I mean? Like, you bring somebody on, and then you don't have full faith that they're going to do the job, and you're just like, But then when they really blow up, you like, damn.
I wouldn't be mad. At least he signed him.
He did sign him. But he didn't.
Could you imagine not having signed J.K. Rowling?
Oh, exactly.
Those like 22 no's that she got. You'd be like, God, that was my cash cow.
Right. That could have been something. And you know what, B? When I saw Genius, I was like, they really just crapped on Kanye. Like, I'm not talking about the new Kanye, though. Kanye. I'm saying at that time, they really did not see what this dude was going to bring. Even though his album became #1, he pretty much made this album out of his damn apartment. It's like he created this whole cultural movement with his one album, and they didn't see it.
You know, and they still don't see it, but we still consume it, and he still takes it to the bank. So at the end of the day, the moral of this story is believe in yourself the way no one else can believe in you. You know, too many times we literally expect the validation before the confidence. And so, and what we were able to experience through Genius, you know, is that Kanye has always had a real vision and a real confidence that he has led with from day one, you know, and so and he won't take no for an answer. And what he does is continue to make noise. So as soon as he's uncancelable. You tell him no, and he's still gonna do it. He's still gonna create the work. He's still gonna talk about you while he's creating the work.
I knew.
Absolutely awful.
I mean, I knew this story was going to hit B's nerve. That's why we chose it. I knew this story.
And Farajii, you know how I feel. If Genius had come out at a different time, I think I could have appreciated it more. But I can't look at him right now without seeing this asshole who is manipulating and just doing all the crazy stuff that he's doing. Like, it's very hard. I mean, I look at him as an abuser at this point. Like, you are maybe not physical. You might not be beating on Kim, but I can't look at you like you're not an abuser at this moment. So it's very hard for me. And you know, I've always been a huge Kanye West fan. I've always been that person that got yelled at for taking up for Kanye. Like, I have rode for Kanye so hard for so many years. Now I'm looking at you like you are toxicity. You have issues. I don't care how much of a genius you are. You are a horrible person. You are a manipulator. And I don't care. For me, Kanye is canceled.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's like anything that the consumer cancels Kanye for is literally a product of sensationalized marketing. And so I think
as women,
really
how can we support a man who's like, oh, my wife is going to divorce me because I've been crazy. I'm going to go buy the house across the street from her. That is insane. That's not healthy. That's not normal.
What I'm not going to do is
if Farajii and I divorce and Farajii goes and buys a house across the street from me, I'm gonna move. That's psychotic. That is intimidating. There's so many issues with that. Like, woman to woman, I don't see how another woman could even justify that behavior. How can anyone justify that behavior? Like, if you put yourself in your shoes, you're trying to get away from an ex.
We can't act like Kim. We can't act like
Well, no. I'm just saying in general, like, if you're getting away from an ex.
And the Kardashian clan
this is not about the Kardashians. I could care less if it was another woman.
And keeps a straight and arrow narrative when it comes to their social
media. What
I'm
saying is, this could be a woman. I don't care who the woman is. I don't care if this woman was the Delta he used to be in love with in college. I could care less. Anytime you break up with a person and they go and buy a house, that is abusive behavior. Like, on a fundamental level, if I say, Farajii, I no longer want to be in this relationship, it's toxic for me, I don't want this, and you go buy the house across, that is intimidation, that is sick, and there's something wrong with you. I would be getting a restraining order against you because that is so traumatic. I can't even imagine going home every day and this man, like, the stuff that Kanye West says in public, the stuff that he puts all over media, I mean, coming from his own mouth, not stuff that we made up, attacking her boyfriend. I mean, there's so much sick stuff that Kanye West is doing. We can pretend like it's not happening because he makes great music, or we can just be real and be like, you have some issues that go far. Like, you lost your mom, I lost my dad. You know, I don't care about none of that. What he's doing is sick. It's sad. And as a woman who has children, I cannot imagine being another woman with my kids and trying to move on with my life. And this man is literally stalking me, because that's the definition of stalking the person.
All right, I'm gonna stop you right there.
I would personally,
that is stalking.
Okay.
I would personally appreciate my husband, who is divorcing me, who I'm divorcing, to move across the street. Me personally, because
absolutely not. That's highly inappropriate.
To constant childcare, you know. So it's like, but I can't weigh on. But
I can't.
I will not weigh. I will not weigh on the mind of the Kardashian. I will not. I do not consume.
But see, that's the problem. You're saying it's because she's a Kardashian.
All right, well,
I don't care if she's a Kardashian. She's a woman. Forget her last name. She's a woman, period. That is not okay.
When we're dealing with puppeteers, when we're dealing with, we're literally.
All right, hold on, ladies, hold on.
I'm so sorry, but like, this is I'm just like on a fundamental.
I'm just trying to close out the show.
Taking it away from like Kanye and Kim. I don't care. Take their names out of it. Farajii Muhammad. If me and you are not together, do not ever go fucking buy a house across the street from me. That is psychotic. That is invading my privacy.
I know the boundaries.
That's invading my privacy. I'm gonna move, and I'm just saying, like, on a fundamental level, there's no justification for that unless they agreed upon. All right, you can move down a block. You can move 5 miles away for all I care. But to move across the street from me, when you already know that this is a hot and heavy divorce, this is not like some easy peasy, we're best friends divorcing. He knew what he was doing, and he knew that shit was intimidating, and he knew that shit was wrong. And I can't see how any woman could defend that madness. I'm sorry.
All right, there we go.
Moving on from Kanye.
All right, let me just we're gonna move on from Kanye.
We just love abusers, and I just
wait, hold on. All right, here we go. We're gonna just move on from Kanye. I think let me throw something funny up into this mix. This lady sued Pop-Tarts. She sued Kellogg's, folks. Check this out. I can't make this stuff up. The judge, fortunately, tossed a fraud lawsuit where a woman claimed that Pop-Tarts was making deceptive advertising due to the paucity of real strawberries in the breakfast treat. Yeah. A federal judge tossed out this lawsuit a few days ago. It was a class action lawsuit, folks, around Pop-Tarts. U.S. District Judge Marvin Aspen said in Chicago, said no reasonable consumer could believe from Kellogg's packaging that the breakfast staple contained only strawberries or more strawberries than other ingredients such as pears and apples.
What?
So apparently, this lady thought that when it says strawberries, that it was going to be exploding with strawberries. And she took the time to fill out the court papers, to pay the court filing fees, because she didn't see enough strawberries in her damn Pop-Tarts. Let me tell y'all something about America. This is what we do. This is this is real. Somebody went and walked.
No, people have nothing better to do with their time.
No, man, Pop-Tarts, the paucity of strawberries, everybody know when you
so
buy
a cinnamon
something.
apple one's good? The cinnamon apple good?
No, it ain't about the cinnamon apples. You know that, look, let me tell you, when you buy a bag of chips, Doritos, Utz, don't matter. What's the likelihood the bag of chips are full all the way up to the top?
Look at this. Look at this. I just opened it.
No package.
Evidently, that's a capitalistic loophole.
That's crazy.
What
That's
if
crazy.
you could actually file your own paperwork and file your own civil suit against Kellogg's for making you pay for half a bag?
But you can't though, because they have the ounces, which means if you weigh it, then it's going to meet the right weight.
All right, so look.
See, I think like a teacher all the time. I'm always like a teacher. I'm 2 steps
I'm
ahead.
saying,
Let me
white
just say
people,
this. Hold on.
parents
hold
find
on.
legal
I'ma put it on
loopholes
the
all the
scale.
time.
Man, let me just tell y'all something. She also said
I'm going to put it on the scale.
that Pop-Tarts, which contain red food dye, she said makes the filling brighter and more appealing on grocery store shelves. She said that the lawsuit pointed out that Pop-Tarts contain less than 2% of dried strawberries in addition to dried apples and pears, and that the strawberry label is misleading because the treats also contain other fruits, possibly in higher proportions. This lady crazy.
Strawberries can be bitter. I'm like, ma'am,
All right,
strawberries
I'm
can
gonna
be a
end
little
this
bit
show on
bitter,
that.
so we're going to add a little bit of a pear to just sweeten it up a little bit. The strawberries are bitter.
Ladies, I appreciate y'all. Man, so much for the lively conversation. B Fly, co-founder, co-owner of Blackwater House Production Company, and she's also a Black woman film producer. Nira Muhammad, who is a writer, who is an activist. She is the host of Queen Talks with Nira Muhammad, the podcast. You can find it on all streaming platforms. Thank you, sisters, for being a part of the conversation tonight. Truly appreciate y'all.
Thanks for having us, Farajii.
Absolutely.
See
Bye.
you next week, Farajii.
All right. Folks, that's going to do it. They can get them off the screen. All right, folks, that's going to do it for me. I appreciate each and every one of you for joining us. Certainly, I appreciate all of you who had posted your comments and you shared your thoughts with us. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Look, if you enjoyed the conversation, continue to support us at blackstarnetwork.com. And you can support a Black-owned media like never before. Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, Zelle. You can find us on all streaming platforms on iPhone, TV, Apple TV Plus, Android TV, Roku, Fire TV, Xbox One, Smart TV. Make sure y'all do justice and support Black-owned media. All right. Stay tuned. Up next at the 6 o'clock hour will be my big brother Roland Martin Unlimited. So tune in for his fantastic show. I always appreciate what's being said. And of course, make sure you stay tuned to all of the great programming we have here on the Black Star Network. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we'll talk tomorrow for another exciting edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Peace.